This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, John Bailey, White Plains Week, the Citizenette reporter, and welcome, citizens of the world, citizens of White Plains. And are you still standing? It's been another great week in America, hasn't it? Welcome, Jim Benerofe, the Dean of Journalism, and of course, Peter Katz, back from a far-flung assignment in parts unknown, with us once again. Jim, the headlines.
And here are the headlines for the week of September 21st. White Plains League of Women Voters schedules a voter registration day for Tuesday, September 25th in White Plains. County declares today car-free day in White Plains. Scaled down bus rapid transit plan in works. Business groups continue to fight County Executive George Latimer on the airport, lobbying for privatization of the county airport. County, towns, and municipalities approve Latimer Shared Services Plan with savings and agreements already in place to share services. 4 new inductees into the White Plains High School Hall of Fame are announced. Frank Bruni, class of 1953, Steve Baruch, class of 1956, Lena Anderson Lee, class of 1965, and Richard Schlesinger, class of 1972.
That's a Schlesinger from CBS News, right?
That's the man, right? And graduate of White Plains High School. Right. And we'll talk about them all in a little detail later in the show. But congratulations to them. Right now, I want to draw your attention to National Voter Registration Day in White Plains, September 25th, where the League of Women Voters will help you register to vote at Berkeley College from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. in White Plains and 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the College of Westchester, 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and Manhattanville College, 12 noon to 2 and 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And if you have any question on election information, you can go to vote411.org, or you can look at this release on my website where I detail what you need to prove your registration.
WPCNR.com.
Thank you, right? Peter. I always forget my own website.
Okay, that'll be $15, please.
Just a curious question. The League of Women Voters is having all these voter registration places on college campuses. Are they looking basically for students to register, or?
Well, they'll say it's open to anyone, and they're not, particularly trying to attract any particular demographic segment. But the fact of the matter is that's
where the unregistered voters are.
Nationally, one push is going to be to get young people to register and to become active and to turn out.
Yes, exactly. But that's Tuesday.
We've seen that with the kids from the Parkland High School, the shooting victims there. One thing that they decided to do early on was to rally and to start having their voices heard at the ballot box, which is the way it's supposed to happen in a country like this.
Always vote.
Yep.
even if it's distasteful.
Yeah. So I mean, what the league is doing here in Westchester and White Plains is really, it's part of a national effort, and it's supposed to be nonpartisan.
Right. But be that as it may, you have to know about it to register.
You do.
Right. So that's why we featured the story. Now, White Plains Week video newsreel, March of Time, and there we see Mayor Tom Roach of White Plains and County Executive George Latimer introducing Car-Free Day in Westchester County yesterday, and this was promoting not driving. And
you remember when bikes with that kind of design were called girls' bikes? Remember, there were girls' bikes and boys' bikes. Boys' bikes had a bar going across. The girls' bikes were like that, so you could very easily, slide one leg across to the other side of the.
I don't know. Well, that was for skirts.
Yeah.
That's why it was done. It was a fashion problem because no women wore pants.
Have we now become unisex with our bicycles?
Well,
this is an interesting journalistic question, something the Journal News needs to address.
I probably shouldn't make this comment, but having a bar on the boys' bicycle probably wasn't really the best thing.
No, it was not, actually. I mean,
yes, I
speaking
think
from experience.
We all had a little discomfort, didn't we?
Well, it was really a problem.
You have no idea what you're going to get when you tune into White Plains Week, do you, folks?
You never know where the trail will wind.
Won't find this on Fox News.
No. However, what you do need to be able to not drive a car is to familiarize yourself with the bus rapid transit system. Next slide, please. And you can also find this on the website. Go to the other slide. Back up, please. Right there you are. Those are the information numbers to look for, and they can fill you in on where the schedules are. Now, after the news conference, which promoted driving or taking mass, did not promote driving, but wanted you to take mass transit, we asked about the new bus rapid transit program. George Latimer, the county executive, at the press conference said there may be some announcement in 30 to 60 days. We talked to Mayor Roach, who told me that there is not going to be any dedicated bus lane on Terrytown Road, and that they are going to be able to turn the lights green by some electronic device to speed up the buses. He also said that engineers are still debating where to put the new bus stations. So any real change in the way buses get around across the county is a long way off, and it was supposed to be in place 2016.
Well, you remember Governor Cuomo in opening the new span of the Cuomo Bridge, formerly the Tappan Zee Bridge, folks.
Yes.
Announced. Yes. Part of his announcement was the start of rapid transit, bus rapid transit across the bridge from Rockland to Westchester.
Well, that is exactly what he means, just rapid transit across the bridge, which is you stall dead when you hit Terrytown. No, seriously, that's the way the bridge is. And we spent a lot of money to continuing the same traffic jam. Now, we do have some intriguing stuff about the county airport. That's the airport right there, and Peter Katz has the story.
Well, as you know, County Executive George Latimer, in his new administration, set aside the deal which had been reached by the Astorino administration to lease out for 40 years the airport to an operator. And Latimer held a series of hearings. He said he didn't like the process. He thought it was rushed what the Astorino administration did. He felt that there wasn't sufficient public input. So he held a series of hearings over the summer, going back to square one in terms of the process to try to figure out what to do with the airport. Now, just this week, the Business Council of Westchester had its voice heard. The
The Business Council of Westchester has assembled a coalition to tout the value of the Westchester County Airport and push for turning it over to a private operator on a lease deal similar to the one former county executive Rob Astorino had lined up. At a September 18th news conference in Rye Brook, speakers expressed concern that myths and fears were dominating discussion of the airport's future.
It's important to realize having an airport of this caliber able to support light to moderate commercial service, business aviation, and general aviation makes for a unique advantage for businesses in the community within Westchester County. The combination of air, rail, and highway presents the perfect infrastructure balance of easy access for the community and business traveler. Airports, especially regional airports, are not being built regularly in the U.S. This asset cannot be replaced.
The tenor of and the volume of the rhetoric that happened during the 3 public hearings that the county executive had were, again, filled with a lot of misnomers. And some of the groups really tried to use some scare tactics, if you will, by calling it any changes to the airport the first step of turning it into LaGuardia North. And that we are going to increase the number of gates and runways and flights. It's not going to happen.
As the leading economic development organization in the county representing our business members, this is essential to the continued growth of business and jobs. When people say economic development, it's about jobs. And we have heard from a broad spectrum of companies, our major corporations, our mid-sized businesses, our small businesses, that this airport is essential to attracting talent, to retaining talent, and so we need a strong airport. So our call to action today is to join our coalition and to go online. We have a very easy form that you could just fill out. It will go directly to the county executive and to the county legislature, and we are urging everybody to join us in this very, very important cause.
So in addition to trying to develop public support and support within the business community, they're also trying to put pressure on Latimer and the County Board of Executives, Board of Legislators rather, to go ahead with a long-term lease deal, which some have called privatization.
With the same outfit or more RFPs?
They didn't have a particular outfit. Yeah. One thing that was brought out at the news conference was that the Business Council did meet with the 3 candidates who had been vying for this under the Astorino administration. Now, the Astorino people had made a selection, and that, of course, is on hold.
Well, I think that Mr. Latimer had 2 issues. One, he didn't feel it was being leased for enough money, that it was too much of a sweetheart deal, which lasts forever despite inflation. No, 30 years, something like that.
It had been 40 years,
40 years.
Under Astorino.
Yes. Now, the big question was, who controls what you do with the airport? And Latimer did not want to give up county approval, whatever was done with the airport. So that is the issue here. What does BCW feel? Do they want the county to approve things, or do they just want to
not necessarily the Astorino deal, but the Astorino deal as a model for what should be done. It should be turned over to a private operator skilled in running airports. The one issue that I have, which comes to, well, there's an operator in there, but at the moment, the way it is, the operator is hired by the county.
I see.
Under this model, the operator would control the airport, would take it over as if it was their own. They would be able to lease the airport. They would pay the county a lease fee for starters. And what that would do would be to allow the county to take money out of the airport and use it for whatever it wants. At the present time, the owner of an airport, under FAA regulations, cannot raid the airport's funds to spend it on other things. All the money has to be spent within the airport to benefit on things that benefit the airport, that are airport related. So by going to this kind of privatization lease arrangement, what you do is you have the operator of the airport taking the money in, right, from fees and things like that that are paid to the airport, and then it pays the county a lease fee. So that lease fee, that money, then becomes the county's to do with whatever it wants. The lease payment is not related to operation of the airport, so that money can be taken by the county and spent on buses
God
or
knows what.
pavement
Yes,
or
right.
anything at all.
Exactly. Make the budget look much better. Lower property taxes.
Which is what
maybe. Mm-hmm.
Astorino had tried to do. You remember Astorino was facing a $15 million budget deficit, and in the first year of this deal, the plan was to take $15 million in payments from the airport operator, the lessor of the lessee of the airport, and use that $15 million to balance the budget.
Well, the big thing here is control. If I were a lease operator, I'd build a hotel, I'd build restaurants, I would go crazy on Greenwich.
Are there any major airports that are private?
Yes, there are a few. Not many, there are a few.
Do you know specifically?
London.
No, I mean in the United States.
One, I believe, in Oakland.
Oakland, California.
Yeah, and I believe the operator that Astorino had lined up handled that one. I may be wrong about the city, though.
I think you're right about that.
It's not common, but it is done.
Yes. Now, intriguing thing happened this week. It was announced on Monday that the municipalities and towns of Westchester had voted to accept George Latimer's shared services plan. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I'm holding it in my left hand, and this is
why do I think of Johnny Carson doing the Karnak routine here?
Because that's what this plan is.
I'm thinking about savings here.
Could we have the Karnak shot, please? There we are. You don't know what is really in this plan or what it's actually going to do.
Well, I mean, the theory sounds really good. You get together, municipalities get together, instead of duplicating efforts. You know, they set up, one shop to buy windshield wipers for all the trucks in the county or something like that.
They adopted the following proposals.
It's an idea they didn't have, and now they have it.
Yeah. The first one is creating the Westchester Saves online shared services portal and app. We do not know how much it's going to cost to do that and how it will be implemented. The second solution is create a county-wide centralized contract for information technology services, which is a real interesting concept, which everybody can buy into and apparently pay for. How much they will pay for, how much it will cost to set up, we don't know. Proposition 3, as we can see that, consolidate law enforcement operations, emergency management operations, and consolidate justice courts. This has interesting possibilities, but it really affects, will judges lose their jobs? Will they be consolidated? I don't see where the savings
Well,
are.
they've tried,
Somebody has to pay for
tried
that.
some consolidation in the past of the police departments. Now, for instance, what is it, Nassau County in Long Island, the police department, they have one police department that's for the whole county. Now, I don't necessarily know why they couldn't do that every place.
Well, there were, when I was living on Long Island, individual police departments. But they actually, you've seen that occasionally, even in Westchester, in New York State, where the state police, for example, will do certain chores. Even county police, will do certain monitoring in different.
Although
areas.
I lived in Suffolk County for many years, and
it
was not very good.
The principle makes sense. It makes sense, not to have everyone having their own assessor. Okay, can one assessor assess everything, everywhere?
Well, that's an interesting answer to that question, and we'll see that when we get to Proposition 6.
Yeah, you're up against the basic desire of politicians to build their own little power bases, and their own little fiefdoms or fiefdoms, depending upon how you pronounce it. But so that's something that you need to overcome.
Correct.
Can there be efficiencies? Of course, there can be efficiencies.
Well, according
But,
to this plan, they will create a lot of efficiencies within the next 6 months.
Whose toes are you going to step on?
Yes. Creation of a county-wide health consortium whereby you could consolidate medical benefits, which sounds interesting. And then Proposal 6, regional management of tax assessment and billing. And hidden down there in about line 5 is an interesting sentence. The city of White Plains has called for a county-wide uniform assessment. The panel proposes the regionalized approach to tax assessment either through multi-municipality agreements and/or the county assuming more prominence in managing certain local municipality assessments.
It could also,
this is very vague and dangerous.
Well, it could also provide a way. Now, this is worst case scenario and highly speculative.
Highly speculative, but I don't think it's far from wrong.
Could this be a way of getting reassessment of all the properties in the county done without having local politicians take the hit for doing this?
And just blame it on the county.
It's their fault. It's the county.
They love doing that.
So that you are right to point out that sentence. And what exactly does it mean? I have heard nothing from City Hall about
we
anything
never
like that.
saw this discussed or heard of it discussed in front of the Common Council.
Yeah.
We never did. Did you? No, we didn't. This is news. This is big news, and it's buried in this.
It could be expensive news.
And Proposition 7, as we work through this rapidly, enhanced energy efficiency programs. And that means they want more towns and communities to join in the
shared electricity.
Yes, which is working out very well for we people who are taking a chance on it. Yes, and now Proposal 8, the shared school resource officers, in which they hope to have the schools.
So instead of sending local police in, you can do that on a regional basis.
Now, you know what? I'm a really stupid reporter, Peter. I admit that, because I thought when the White Plains Police supplied school resources to White Plains High School, it was part of the service of the police department. It's not. The school pays for it. Yeah. The school district told me this. Full salary and benefits for the resource officers, I think there are 2, assigned. Now, how does this save anybody money if you're paying for the officers?
I don't know. But, the one thing that you do need to point out is that, this plan was not something that came out of thin air. They had, skilled people. They had professionals drafting this thing.
That they pay.
That the names are right. Names are right on the cover.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see a Rockefeller.
They're very skilled. Exactly.
Rockefeller Institute of Government, Benjamin Center, and on behalf of Westchester County.
And it was all based on suggestions made, and then they tried to put it together.
These are not schlock people, but when
you have to see what the overall objective is.
When these become really controversial public issues in the future, you can say you heard it first on White Plains Week.
But this idea of reval, the politician's panacea for all revenue problems, is very dangerous. It worked out so well in Greenberg. They're now paying property taxes on the installment plan.
We've got our own problems, John, nationwide. And
one more thing.
One more thing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
On next slide, please. There is what they say they are going to do in this year. They're going to be able to get a lot of what they propose for this year in 2019 and get reimbursed for about $7.5 million. And this will be the fastest the county has ever done anything if they really execute it. And then finally, they have this envisioned for the future. More helpful shared savings the county will consider. Better management of municipal workforce, collective bargaining, info sharing. That's what the major league owners do to hold down salaries. They don't hire free agents. Workforce database, shared accounting systems, consolidate sewer districts and water districts, countywide taxi licensing opt-in, shared maintenance facilities, shared services czar in the county, and perhaps the czar will have his own department. And now into the Trump world.
President Trump is scheduled to fly to Newark Airport around midnight tonight so he can squeeze in a couple of more days at his golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey. When he's there, the government pays him and his family for use of the property. As we're recording this show, we're passing the deadline set by the Senate Judiciary Committee and its chairman, Republican Charles Grassley, for Professor Christine Blasey Ford to submit her testimony and resume if she wants to testify at the hearing that Grassley scheduled for Monday. Ford has accused Supreme Court Judge nominee Brett Kavanaugh of attempting to rape her while they were high school students. That's a felony in the state of Maryland where this supposedly took place. There is no statute of limitations. So Kavanaugh could be charged in Maryland at any time, even after he's on the Supreme Court, assuming that he would get on the Supreme Court. Trump has raised taxes on everyone without everyone realizing it. Effective Monday, a 10% tariff will be imposed on thousands and thousands of things made in China and brought into the U.S. The list of items is 195 pages long. I've seen it. It's in small print. The extra 10% you'll be paying goes to the government. And if that's not enough, Trump plans to increase the tariff to 25% beginning next year. The Chinese goods are valued at about $200 billion a year, so that means Trump would be taking about $50 billion out of our pockets on top of the billions more he's taking in other tariffs. Bob Woodward's book about the Trump White House, entitled Fear, sold 750,000 copies just in its first day of release. The book is based on 100 interviews with White House insiders and Trump confidants. Woodward recorded hundreds of hours of interviews for the book. Documentary filmmaker and political activist Michael Moore is coming out with a new film about the Trump administration and what's been happening in the country. Moore finally catches up with White Plains Week. For almost 2 years, has been pointing out that what Trump is doing right now is right out of Hitler's playbook and parallels what happened in Germany in the 30s.
Right.
Moore makes it plain that the very essence of our democracy is under attack, and Trump, plain and simple, is setting himself up to become the first dictator as the Republicans in Congress completely abdicate their congressional responsibility. Moore believes that Trump will likely find a pretext for declaring martial law and canceling the next presidential election before the fact, or if he is blocked from doing that and then loses the election, will declare the election null and void, claiming it was rigged. Trump visited the victims of Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, and when he was there, he asked in public and openly, what happened to my property here? He has property in North Carolina.
Well, he was. Too bad he didn't stay there. Right?
And then, in the quote of all quotes, he said, "It rained a lot, and it sure was wet."
Well, yes. How perceptive. Now, one thing on the Kavanaugh thing, the idea of the sexual charge is not why Mr. Kavanaugh does not deserve to be on the bench. It is decisions he has made in the past.
Well, it's all of this put together.
Let me say this. His decisions have shown insensitivity, self-righteousness, loyalty to his preconceived notions, no heart, and I always remember the judge who pointed to his robes, the black robes on his arm, and he said, "I wear these robes to right wrongs." I don't think Mr. Kavanaugh is going to do that. This is John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe. Good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.